The email came on a Wednesday evening, formal, goal, lined and signed by my mother herself. Asterisk, a family dinner to celebrate Dad's 35 years in business. Formal attire, 7 p.m. sharp. Asterisk, for most people, it was just a dinner invitation. For me, it felt like a long, weighted olive branch. It had been months since I'd been invited to anything family-related. My siblings, Emma and David, had spouses, mortgages, and kids, their lives seemingly adult enough to earn them front row seats in the family circle. I, on the other hand, was the unmarried one, the artsy daughter who never settled down, the one who, according to my mother, still had time to figure herself out. I was 30, too. But when that email came, hope blossomed in my chest. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this dinner was their way of saying, asterisk, you belong too, Maya. Asterisk, I spent the next 2 days choosing a dress that balanced elegance with subtlety. Something that said, asterisk, I'm part of this family, asterisk. Also, asterisk, I'm not invisible anymore. Asterisk, when I arrived at the restaurant, the glittering chandeliers and marble floors seemed to reflect the warmth I wanted to feel. My heart fluttered with cautious optimism. The hostess greeted me with a polished smile. You must be Miss Maya, right this way. As we walked through the grand dining hall, I spotted the adult table immediately, long, draped in white linen, silver cutlery gleaming under candlelight. My father sat at the head, laughing with David's wife. My mother leaned toward Emma, whispering something that made her giggle softly. I smiled instinctively, ready to walk toward them, but the hostess stopped short, at a smaller, round table tucked in the corner near the buffet. Balloons, crayons, and juice boxes cluttered the surface. My nieces and nephews sat there, swinging their legs already halfway through plates of fries. Here we are, the hostess said brightly. The kids' table. For a heartbeat, I thought it was a mistake. I looked over her shoulder toward the main table. There were empty seats too, in fact. But before I could say anything, my mother turned, saw me, and smiled like nothing was amiss. Oh, Maya, sweetheart. We thought you'd be more comfortable here with the kids. You've always been so good with them. The laughter that followed, soft, polite, suffocating, told me everything I needed to know. Emma gave me a sympathetic shrug. David didn't even look up from his wine glass. I felt my throat tighten, but I forced a small, steady smile. Of course, Mom, I said and sat down. My chair squeaked awkwardly against the tile. The kids barely noticed me, too busy with their coloring books and dessert menus. One of them looked up and asked, Auntie, aren't you too old for the kids' table? The adults chuckled from across the room. Each moment stretched painfully thin. Waiters poured champagne at the adult table, while a teenage server brought me a glass of apple juice. My father's speech filled the room, echoing pride and nostalgia as he named the people who made this journey worthwhile. David, his right hand in business, and Emma, the pride of the family. My name never left his lips. My chest burned, but I kept smiling. The mask didn't crack. When the applause erupted, I joined in softly, clapping for a family that no longer saw me as one of their own. My reflection in the window caught my eye. A woman dressed for recognition, seated among children, invisible where she had hoped to belong. As the laughter swelled and toasts were made, I reached for my phone under the table, typed a short note to myself. Asterisk, don't beg for a seat at their table again. Asterisk, then I tucked the phone away, folded my napkin neatly, and whispered to the air, enjoy your dinner, everyone. No one heard me, and maybe, for the first time, that was the beginning of my freedom. The laughter, from the adult table, rolled through the restaurant like waves, loud, constant, drowning. Every few seconds, I could hear my mother's familiar laugh, the one that used to make me feel safe as a child. Tonight, it sounded like a wall I could never climb. I tried to focus on the tiny fork in my hand, cutting through a piece of cold chicken, pretending the sound didn't sting. The kids around me were busy making towers out of breadsticks and spilling juice. I smiled at their innocence, but deep down, my heart ached with something heavy and wordless. Across the room, Emma's husband clinked his glass to make a toast. To family, he said, his voice booming. My parents and siblings cheered, their glasses high. My apple juice sat untouched. When my father stood to speak, I felt every eye turn toward him. He adjusted his tie, smiled, and said, 35 years in business, and I couldn't have done it without my family. David, my right hand, my pride. Emma, who brings grace and light into every room. And of course, their wonderful spouses, who have truly become our own. He paused, scanning the room briefly. For a moment I thought, just maybe he'd say my name, but his gaze slid right past me like I was air. I swallowed hard and looked down at my plate. The sound of applause followed, and I clapped along, softly, even though every beat of my palms felt like breaking glass inside my chest. The dinner continued with cheerful chatter, more wine, and endless laughter. I watched them from across the room, the real adults, as my mother often called them. They were laughing, leaning close, whispering stories I wasn't part of. Then the family friend with the camera approached the kids' table. "Say cheese," he chirped. The children smiled wide. I looked up just as the flash went off, catching me mid. Blink, emotionless, expression unreadable. When he reviewed the shot, I saw his brow furrow. He quickly turned the camera away. That was when I knew. It was time to leave. I waited until the next burst of laughter from the main table drowned out all sound. Slowly, I placed my fork down, folded my napkin, and slid my chair back. The scraping sound was small, but to me it felt deafening. No one turned. Not a single person looked my way. I rose quietly, picked up my purse, and took one last look at them, the family that had built a life without me in it. My mother's eyes were crinkled in joy. My father's hand rested on David's shoulder. Emma's diamond earrings caught the candlelight. I had never felt so unseen in a room so full of people who were supposed to love me. As I reached the door, I heard a burst of laughter. My mother's again, echoing like a cruel song. I smiled faintly, not in anger but in understanding. They didn't see me leave. They wouldn't even notice I was gone, at least, not yet. Outside, the winter air bit against my skin. The cold was sharp, cleansing. I walked to my car slowly, heels clicking on the cobblestone, the restaurant's golden lights fading behind me. Once inside the car, I sat still for a moment. My hands trembled as I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Eyes glistening, mascara slightly smudged. I unlocked my phone. The family group chat glowed on the screen, filled with photos of the dinner, laughing faces, glittering glasses, the happy unit I was never part of. Without hesitation, I pressed * leave group. *, then I scrolled to my mother's number, hovered over the call button, and instead hit * block. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was freeing. For the first time in years, there was no obligation to explain my feelings. No need to pretend that being excluded was acceptable. I drove off into the night, the city lights blurring through my tears. Somewhere between the pain and the quiet, I made a silent promise to myself. If they ever looked for me again, they would have to look up to find me. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet I once feared became my peace. No constant messages from my mother about settling down. No pity calls from Emma asking, "Are you still single?" No sarcastic jokes from David about my little art thing. For the first time, I could breathe. I poured my pain into work, every ounce of it. My little art thing became something real, something powerful. I began taking on private commissions, designing interiors for boutique hotels and restaurants. My name started to spread, first through whispers in creative circles, then through official recognition. People began calling me Maya Khalid, the visionary minimalist. The same name my father couldn't mention in his speech was now on magazine covers. But success didn't come overnight. There were long nights of exhaustion, countless rejections, and tears that stained my sketches. Yet, every setback reminded me of that dinner, that moment when I realized I was done waiting for approval. Each drawing, each design, was a quiet rebellion, a declaration that I would no longer sit at the kids' table in anyone's life. 3 months later, I opened my own design studio. The launch party was intimate but beautiful. Industry leaders came, art critics wrote features, and clients booked projects months in advance. My photo appeared in * Architect's Vision Weekly * under the headline, **, Breaking Patterns, the artist who redefined modern elegance. Asterisk asterisk, when my parents found out, it wasn't from me. It was from the morning paper. I could imagine my mother's gasp, the phone falling from her hand. Emma must have called her next, and David too. Maybe they talked about me, or maybe they didn't, but soon after the calls started, missed calls at first, then texts. Asterisk, proud of you, sweetheart. Asterisk asterisk, why didn't you tell us? Asterisk asterisk, come over for dinner. We miss you. Asterisk, I stared at the messages but didn't reply. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. You can't build bridges where there's no foundation left. Months passed and I grew stronger, softer, freer. I started traveling Paris, Milan, Dubai, meeting clients who valued my art and my voice. Every contract I signed felt like another thread, severing the old pain. Then one morning, an email appeared from a luxury event management company. They were hosting a asterisk business legacy, gala asterisk, to honor successful entrepreneurs and artists who had inspired their industries. They wanted me as a keynote speaker, and the venue, the same restaurant where my family once sat laughing without me. I froze for a moment, reading the name again, asterisk La Montrose. Asterisk the same golden lights, the same marble floors. The universe had a wicked sense of poetry. When the night of the gala arrived, I wore an emerald gown that caught the light like liquid glass. My hair framed my face in soft waves, my makeup flawless yet understated. This time I wasn't walking in with hope. I was walking in with purpose. As I entered, cameras flashed. People greeted me with respect, the kind that once felt impossible. The manager smiled wide. Miss Khalid, welcome. Your family is already here. I blinked. My family. He nodded. Yes, your parents and siblings. They're among the honored guests. They didn't know you were the keynote. Should I inform them? I smiled faintly. No, let's keep it a surprise. Inside, I spotted them immediately. My mother in her signature pearls, my father shaking hands, David laughing loudly, Emma glowing as always. They hadn't seen me yet, and for a moment I simply watched them. The same table, the same laughter. But this time, I was no longer the forgotten daughter in the corner. I was the name on the banner, the reason the cameras were rolling. The night was about to begin, and so was my quiet revenge. The air shimmered with the hum of chatter and clinking glasses. The chandeliers above cast soft golden light across the grand hall of asterisk La Montrose asterisk, just as they had that night months ago. But this time the whispers weren't about my siblings, they were about me. Maya Khalid, the designer everyone's been talking about. Someone murmured behind me. Her work is revolutionary. I smiled politely, letting the words wash over me. I wasn't nervous, not tonight. Every moment that had once made me feel small had prepared me for this one. When the host took the stage, the crowd quieted. Tonight, he announced, we celebrate visionaries who redefined excellence. Our keynote speaker built success from silence, grace from rejection, and art from heartbreak. Please welcome Maya Khalid. The applause was thunderous. As I walked up to the podium, my eyes met my parents'. Their faces froze in disbelief. My mother's hand halfway to her glass, my father's lips parted but speechless. Emma and David looked stunned, their smiles faltering as realization dawned. I reached the microphone, adjusted it slightly, and smiled. Good evening, I began. My voice was steady, calm. It's an honor to stand here tonight, in this very room actually, where I learned one of the most valuable lessons of my life. A murmur rippled through the crowd. My family leaned forward. I learned that sometimes. I continued. People will seat you at the wrong table not because you don't belong, but because they can't see your worth yet. And when that happens, you don't fight for a chair. You build your own. A soft hush filled the hall. Even the waiters paused to listen. I glanced toward my parents' table. My mother's eyes glistened. My father's jaw was tight, his hand gripping his napkin. Emma looked down, shame flickering across her face. I used to think acceptance was love, I said gently. But I realized that real love doesn't make you earn your place. It doesn't shrink you to make others comfortable. It celebrates you. The audience erupted in applause, some even standing. Cameras flashed. My family clapped too, awkwardly at first, then more convincingly. as if trying to pretend they were part of my journey. When my speech ended, I bowed slightly and stepped off the stage. People surrounded me, reporters, investors, admirers, each one offering congratulations. But through the noise, I could still feel my mother's gaze fixed on me. A few minutes later, I saw them weaving through the crowd, faces pale but eager. My father reached me first. "Maya," he began, voice low and trembling. "We had no idea. We're so proud of you." My mother nodded quickly. "Darling, why didn't you tell us you were speaking tonight?" I met her eyes and smiled softly. "You didn't ask." She flinched slightly at the calmness in my tone. David stepped in awkwardly. "You really took off, huh? We should all catch up soon. Maybe someday," I said, still smiling. "But tonight's not about catching up, it's about moving forward." Before they could respond, a journalist approached me, asking for a photo. I turned toward the camera, posing gracefully. My family stood behind me, unsure whether to stay or leave. By the time the flashes stopped, they had quietly backed away, retreating to the corner where they had once seated me. Later that night, as I left the gala, my phone buzzed non-stop. 22 missed calls, all from home. Family group chat had reappeared with messages flooding in. Asterisk, call us. Asterisk, asterisk, we're worried. Asterisk, asterisk, we love you. Asterisk, I stared at the screen for a long moment before turning it off. The silence felt poetic. The same silence they once gave me returned with grace, wrapped in gold. As my car pulled away from asterisk La Montrose asterisk, I looked out the window one last time. The restaurant shimmered in the distance, the same place that had once broken me now standing as the stage for my rebirth. I whispered to the night, "You don't lose family. Sometimes they lose you." And this time I didn't look back.